So to start with, I lost the audio for this video, but I started out with my black rock that was painted with apple barrel black, and it's a flat black, so I really like it because it's like a true black. And this rock I made from a, oh, what do you call those things? Oh my gosh, the silicone mold. This is not going to be good if I'm already like losing my words. Okay, so it's a silicone mold from the Dotting Company that you can get off of eBay. Oh, no, not eBay. Etsy. It does come from, I believe, Australia, so it may take a couple days to get to you. But I love this mold because it's a big round mold. And I like to paint on bigger surfaces. So I'm starting with titanium white, quinacridone magenta, and I'm taking a Princeton Select. Let's see, it's a Princeton Select round blender brush, and a number 12. They make a number 12 and a number 6 that I know of, and these are great brushes. I would highly recommend them. They're really good for clouds too. But I'm using it to just kind of do a mottled background. So I'm just dabbing different shades of pink and magenta on this background. And I'm going to do this in several layers because I use Liquitex Basics, and Basics is their student grade line. So they're not as opaque. They're a lot more translucent than, say, their soft body or heavy body paints, which are professional grade. But if you go to Hobby Lobby, here at our Hobby Lobby, the quinacridone magenta in the 4 fluid ounces is $4.99, which is a really good price. That's a lot of paint for $5. So compared to craft paint that, you know, if you don't get it on sale or whatever, can be $2 or $3. Well, I guess, yeah, $2 to $3. And it's only 2 fluid ounces. So I don't know. I think that the Liquitex Basics is just a really good deal. Plus, it is more. Oh shoot! See, I'm gonna already lose my words. Oh my gosh. I'll come back to that when I think about it. I looked at the screen while I was talking and I got distracted because I realized that I needed to let you know that I am going to add purple to this background. So I've done the quinacridone magenta with the titanium white, and I am going to add dioxazine purple, which never shows up purple on my screen. It always shows up blue, but it is purple. And again, that's dioxazine purple. They're cut. Okay, so what I was saying originally was Liquitex Basics, even though they're a student grade paint, they have a very good color fastness rating, which is how fast the paints are going to fade under UV rays. So I think the standard is like 100 years. That the paints, when they're in a room not exposed to direct sunlight, the paints will last for like 100 years, I think is what it is. I could be completely wrong there, but I think I heard or read that somewhere years ago, and that's what I've always gone with. But these have a very good color fastness rating. Craft paints don't. You'll notice they don't have any rating at all on them. So that means that it hasn't been tested on how well it's going to hold up. So we're painting rocks that are going to be set outside in the sun, and they could feasibly fade within a couple of months. So that's just something to think about. The nice thing about craft paints is you can get it in every color under the sun, where professional tube paints, there's a lot of colors out there, but you may have to do more blending to get the color that you want. So that's that. That's my whole spiel on color, color fastness. I just think if you're going to put the time and effort into painting something, even if it is just a rock, you want it to last. So use a quality paint would be my suggestion. So as you can see, back to the rock, you can see I'm still going over my background. I'm doing a wet on wet technique. You could do a wet on dry technique. You could let your layers dry, but I want them to blend. So I'm using wet on wet. I want it to slightly blend. I want it to have a mottled effect. And so I'm going to just fast forward through the rest of this so we can get to painting the little elephant. So now I'm taking my General's charcoal white pencil and I'm kind of sketching out my design. And I'm going to fast forward through this too. For one, you can't see the design very well on this background. Number two is that I provided the line drawing for this, so you don't need me to go through how I actually kind of sketched it all out. Since you've got the line drawing, I recommend using that or drawing it yourself if you're comfortable with doing that. So we're going to fast forward through this and get to painting. So for the gray, which is what I'm using here, it's a neutral gray. This is by the Fine Touch, which is the Hobby Lobby brand. And the light fastness on Hobby Lobby brands usually is pretty sketchy. They're pretty low ratings. So you have to take that into consideration if you are going to use the Fine Touch Hobby Lobby brand. I just happen to have that color, and I don't use their paints very much, but I wanted to go ahead and I'm trying to use up some of the paints. So everything I said about light fastness in the beginning, the light fastness on their stuff is not good, but I am going to go ahead and use it for this gray. You can use just black and white, like an ivory black or a Mars black and titanium white, and come up with your own gray. So I'm going to show you two different techniques for blocking in color. The first technique I'm going to show you here in a minute is because you don't want to lose your line drawing and where like the mother is and the trunk is and where the baby is. But if you paint the whole thing in gray like I need to do for this, you're going to lose the separation from those items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in the mother's head and the trunk all in gray, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to actually highlight underneath the baby before I paint it in. Not the highlight, the shadow. I'm going to paint in the shadow on the trunk and against the head where the baby is, so that gives me kind of a line to go with when I go to paint in the baby, so I don't lose where the separation is, like from the legs and the trunk and things like that. Now that's the way I would recommend doing this if you're not going to outline it in black. I am going to outline it in black, and so you're going to see that technique as well. But if you don't want to do the outline, then try doing the shading before moving on. You're going to see what I'm talking about. I may not be making myself very clear here. This is why I always fast forward all of my videos on YouTube so much, is because you can see I'm a slow painter. I like to just kind of enjoy the process and not feel rushed through it. So clearly you could definitely paint faster than I do. But if you're painting along with me with this rock, the speed might not be so bad. I don't know. You can always jump ahead if you need to, if I'm painting too slow. Now I am going to be putting several coats to cover up the background. Again, these paints I'm using are pretty translucent, so they usually need multiple coats. And you'll notice I'll put the paint down, and then I go over the edges where you see the brush strokes. If you kind of go over those softly, you'll get rid of some of those brush strokes, so they won't be as noticeable. It'll really kind of smooth them out if you kind of go over them softly. So now I'm dipping into the purple, and I'm going to mix it in with the gray, and that's going to create my shadow color. I'm not using any black for the shadow on this. And now I'm going to go around, so I'm going around the back leg and the belly and front leg of the baby. I painted over where the trunk goes because I decided I was going to change the shape of the trunk a little bit than what I had drawn in. So I just painted over that, and I'll just kind of sketch something out later. But you see kind of where I'm just darkening underneath where the baby should be. If you can kind of see where that is. And while I have that paint going, I'm going to go ahead and highlight shadow some of the other areas. I guess I took my shadow out too far, so I need to clean that up with a little bit more of the gray. Now I'm going to add a little shadow to where their heads are kind of leaning on each other. And again, this is just a good way to do it if you don't want to outline your subject. Just because I outline a lot of mine to give it that cartoon look, I personally like the way that looks, but you may not like that. And so this is the way I would paint it if I wasn't going to outline it. So now see, I'm painting in the baby, and you can see now there's a separation between the mama's head and the baby's head where that shadow is. And I'm just going to go in and block in the baby. I'm doing his ear now. Another way you can do it, but you will have to cover it up eventually, is you can leave a gap between the parts. So you could have, I left a gap, you could leave a gap between the ear and the body to where you can see the background, but eventually you're going to have to go in and add a shadow there or something so that you cover up that background. But instead of taking your paint all the way to the trunk, you could, or to the body, you could leave a gap between the ear and the body. I hope I'm making that clear, to where you can see the background paint. Now I didn't do a separation between the body and the ear, but that's pretty easy to just go in and freehand that back in. So now I'm going to paint in the trunk, I believe. Is when I go in. So I'm just painting this in. I didn't even draw it in. I just decided to just go ahead and paint it. My stomach is growling. I hope y'all can't hear that. I guess I need to eat. Haven't eaten today, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I come down here to my studio in the mornings, and usually once I'm down here, I don't leave for the day. And I'm going to work on painting with the rock on the table. I always pick it up to paint, and I realize that y'all can't see a lot of what I'm doing. So here I've got this is the detailed brush that I always use, and if you saw, it's a Holotap, which I get off of Amazon, and it's the 000 or 3 zeros, however you want to call it. And for some reason, my phone is turning on and talking to me. I have an Android and I have Bixby, and I guess I triggered her somehow. So sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going in and lining the mama and the baby. And if I had done this first, I could have painted the gray within the black lines. That would have been really easy. But like I said, I wanted to show you how I would go about doing it if I wasn't going to outline it. and not lose kind of where the items needed to be, where the baby and the mama and the trunk and everything needed to be. Now I am having to kind of figure out where the head is, because I didn't shadow any of this. I'm just kind of freehanding this part. And when you draw and paint enough, I've been doing this for 20 years, you'll get to where you can do this pretty easily. And if you do mess up, like I will mess up at the ear here in a minute, you just paint over it. It's no big deal. I mess up my paintings all the time and have to repaint sections. Sometimes I'll try something new, or I'll think I'll use one technique and I don't like the way it looks, and so I'll paint it in a different technique. You know, little mess ups like that are no big deal. And if you don't film your work like I do, no one will ever know. But I think it's important that I just leave that kind of stuff in here. I did a test live, a live stream test, I guess yesterday, and I was doing flowers, just real simple flowers with Posca pens, and I painted one flower, and then I decided to paint a different flower, and I was just kind of winging it, and I hated the way it looked. So on the live, I painted over the flower with the black background paint that I have and just left it out. So, but I think it's important that you know that mistakes are made. No matter how long you've been painting, that's going to happen. But it's very easy to fix. I remember when I first started painting, I wanted to paint, but I was so intimidated, and I would sit and I would be like, I'm going to paint this, and it would take me like literally weeks to sit down at an easel and paint, because I was so scared I was going to screw it up. But over the years, you realize it doesn't even matter. You can fix anything. And with acrylic paints, it's really easy to fix stuff. I originally painted in oils, and I still do. I still like to paint in oils. Now I do oils over acrylic, which is a different technique, but that I like to do on canvas. But even with oils, I've learned how to I'll just wipe the paint straight off the canvas with a paper towel if I screw something up. So no matter what you do, you can always either fix it or you can start over. I can paint this whole rock black again and just start over and paint something completely different if I don't like it. So don't let the fear of screwing up, hinder you from painting. Because the only way to get good at it is to do it, and do it often. I'm still learning, and I think I'm still improving. Like, painting on rocks is completely different for me than painting on a canvas, because they're so small, and I'm used to painting large. And I think the larger you paint, the easier it is. Like, I've done window splashes, which is where you paint on a window for like a business to advertise, and I love doing those. Now right here, you can see where I had that line, and I'm just going over it with some gray and fixing that. But back to the window splashes, they're more like mural type paintings, and I find those to be a lot easier. And find these, getting detail on a rock, uh, the kind of detail I want to get, is hard to achieve on such a small surface, on such a small canvas. So I'm still kind of learning how to paint on rocks. It's different. Plus the texture, if you paint on an actual rock, the texture is, I'm not used to having so much texture. That's why I kind of like the ones that you do in these silicone molds, because they come out so smooth. And this is actually for like a mandala rock type painting, but I don't usually do mandalas. I do a lot of Zentangles when I'm sitting on the couch. I have a scrapbook and I'll do a lot of Zentangles. And I have some of my older YouTube where I'm painting on canvas. I call them canvas doodles, where I'll actually do the same type of Zentangle on a canvas. Those are a lot of fun. So now that I've gotten, let's see, everything, I guess I'm just doing details now with the black liner. Still doing those. Doing the wrinkles of the trunk. And for the black, I'm using Liquitex black opaque black. And Liquitex is an airbrush paint, so it's real thin, but it's very opaque. So it's like a true black. And I really like to use that when I'm doing these outlines. That's something I used to do when I would do my window splashes. I would outline, I call it trapping. So I would trap the design, and this is the type of paint I would use for that. I really like the way it looks, so I'm just using it on the rocks as well. I think it works out really well. And we got to give the little baby an eye. Yeah, I'm going to work on painting on my rocks flat. It makes it very difficult for y'all to see exactly what I'm doing. And you'll have to excuse my hands. They look dirty. They're stained with alcohol inks because I had been playing with alcohol inks on rocks as a background. It's something I'm having to kind of play around with and see if I can't get it kind of figured out. I'd like to use alcohol inks for my backgrounds. So now I'm back into my purple and doing my highlight, or I don't know why I keep saying that, doing the shadows. So now I'm mixing up the quinacridone magenta and a little bit of water to make a glaze for the ear. And I'm just building my layers. You see, I'm not going in, you can't see the color very well, but as I add layers, the color will become stronger. And because it is a glaze, it dries pretty fast. Now I'm back in the purple to do some more kind of shading. You see how I keep going to that same area between the baby and the trunk? Because I'm adding layers to darken that area. Instead of painting it really dark to begin with, I'm building the layers up, and that's what's creating the depth and the darkness. And you can see I just kind of swirl that glaze on. It's kind of how it's like I'm just staining it. And I should mention that I saw this um a drawing very similar to this on Pinterest. I got a lot of my inspiration off of Pinterest. So this wasn't exactly my design. It was one I saw off of there, and I think it's just really cute. And I'm thinking that I'm done, but then I realized I haven't painted in his toes. I'm gonna have to clean out my lines, and then I still want to darken some of the shadow underneath his body. And you could use black as a shadow. I just think the purple just kind of looks better against the gray. It doesn't. Sometimes black will make things look flat. So when I can get away with using just a darker color, I'll do that. And I always clean my brush when I'm done painting. I don't ever let the paint sit on the paintbrush because acrylics will destroy a paintbrush. And I never leave my paintbrushes in the water because that will also really shorten the life of your paintbrush. So it looks like I'm going in with a lighter color gray. It's not. What I'm doing is I've got water on my paintbrush, and if the purple isn't completely dry, I can push that purple around a little bit. But it's also making the gray a little lighter because it's wet, and it'll, once that water dries on it, it'll darken back up. So now I'm going to take my Liquitex black, and I'm going to just go over some of my lines. When you go over it with the colored paint, it softens the lines a little bit, and I want them to be crisp, so I'm going to go back over those. And now, let's see. Nope, I haven't realized that I need to paint in the toes yet. But I do figure that out before the video ends. And see, I'm going to sign it, which I highly recommend you sign everything you paint. Because you just never know. See, and I'm going to set it down, and then I am going to realize that he needs toes. My fingers are so stained it looks like I've been eating Cheetos. Oh, and I'm going to fix her mouth too. I wanted to pull her mouth out just a little bit. So I'm taking some gray, and then I have to kind of cover those lines. Clean that back up. And see how this goes on lighter. Acrylics tend to always dry a little darker, and it's called color shifting. And usually less expensive paints, your more economical paints, crafts paints, they'll all have some slight color shifting. Your more expensive paints kind of cuts down on that. So now I'm going to paint in his little toes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will try to improve and not hold my rock up so much. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll paint this rock and let me see it. I have a Facebook group. Right now it's called Rockin' It with April May. I'll have the link listed below on Facebook. And I would love to see your rocks. Whether it be one that I painted and it's from one of my tutorials, or one you painted on your own. I would love to see your rock because I get inspiration from other people's work as well. Now I'm just going in and kind of adding some shadows on the little toes to make them stand out even more. And there we go. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.